Hi, welcome to Professor Kev
All
Show.
right.
Today I got my buddy Rashelle with us from Maximally. Good morning, my friend, or good evening where you are, my friend. How you doing?
Great. This is a really great initiative, taken by Kevin. I really, really appreciate this, initiative you've taken. And I also want to do something like this. Of course, not a podcast, but something somewhat of like a mini podcast. I want to start at Maximum,
Yep.
right?
So before we jump into Maximally, tell me a little bit about yourself. What should my audience know about you?
All right. So, I sort of, used to be like this kid who used to, somehow scored like, good marks, but without actually studying, right? I was not like some genius or anything, right? But I, just used to wake up late, cram half-heartedly, charm the teachers of it, and like somehow, marks were sorted. But I always, felt sort of out of place and dead. So, my entire life was sort of, on automate mode. And then I entered my 11th grade. In 11th grade, I entered into the normal competitive exam. So basically in India, right, there's this thing called JEE, right? And everyone, literally everyone, enters into this, competitive race that, you have to become an engineer. And
Mhm.
after that, you can sort of, do whatever you want. So I also entered that game. But while I was, preparing for JEE, right, I couldn't. Like that thing like broke me. Like I just, couldn't. I was pretending to care about physics, right? But I was secretly daydreaming about my, my startup ideas. And like I was, just like picture myself playing, playing startup founder, listening to podcasts, and just like giving speeches in my head. I wasn't that bad at school, right? I just didn't care about it.
Yep.
I was not obsessed with exams. I was sort of obsessed with building, right? And it all started, off as a random website, startup text that I never pitched, YouTube videos that I never uploaded, ideas that made zero sense. I still chase them, but they were like $1 million ventures in my head, right? And I was not even like a party guy either, right? I was not that. I couldn't hold a conversation with a lot of people. I sort of made myself uh, my idea of fun, right, was just tweaking a landing page at 2 a.m. or reading some founder's Twitter thread at like like it was a thriller novel, right? So yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Maximally. Tell me why you started it and what you do.
All right. So why, basically, after, like my midterms of my 11th grade, right? I convinced my parents, to please let me just drop out of, this coaching I was in. It was hell to me. Like I just didn't want, I did not want to study, right? It just, completely broke me. And they were like, what are you going to do now? Like, I was not in school, right? I was going to this coaching. That was my full time. So I got into the hackathon space. I, started participating in hackathons. And through, participating in hackathons, I sort of, like the entire idea of hackathons, and I was like, I can host better hackathons than these, right? So I had a lot of, I had a good circle, and then I started hosting hackathons. So initially, I hosted hackathons for schools, like as a service, right? And then I was like, let's host the biggest hackathon for, North Indian student in India. And I did, right? We raised 4 lakh rupees in sponsorships, and it was crazy, a really good hackathon. But the problem is, right? The submissions that came in, right, they were below par. I mean, what the projects were, they weren't something that were of level. That what these were college students, right? These were school students. Like I would say that since with the advent of AI and the world is really progressing really fast, they should have had better projects. So then I saw this huge gap, the skill gap, right? And I was like, I need to solve this. So I convinced my co-founder to somewhat just let me exit this company. You host hackathons, you keep all the money,
Yep.
whatever sponsor that you've made, right? And let me host like these boot camps. And that's how I got into Maximally. And right now we host boot camps. We also have a hackathon division through we convince people that like come into our boot camps. Our boot camps are completely free, right? It's mostly about entrepreneurship, but we teach skills like AI, no code, how to make no code apps, right? Digital marketing, distribution, right? And industry mentors come and they explain the entire. So yeah, that is what Maximally is at its core.
So let's talk a little bit more about the boot camps. Tell me about the types
Mhm.
of subjects you're covering in the boot camp so people know.
All right. So Maximally Bootcamp, it's like a startup crash course plus a builder bootcamp. So right, you go from ideation, MVP to pitching, and each day has like a new theme. It's a 7-day bootcamp, right? So it has entrepreneurship fundamentals, AI tools, digital marketing, content creation, public speaking, and personal branding. This type of stuff school never teaches you, right? But sort of the real world expects you to know, somehow that you should know everything, but you're never sort of taught, right? At least in India. So we bring in industry mentors, actual founders, creators, and operators for live sessions, not just listening. And the each session is followed by execution task. You build as you learn, right?
Yep.
And after you shift something real, right, you pitch to actual judges, network with people across India, and you're ready to start off. You can start your own internship after the boot camp, your own startup, your own project, your own NGO, right? We don't hand out certificates for showing up, right? We give them a launch pad. Launchpad is the perfect word, I would say, to describe this boot camp.
So, crystal
Hmm.
ball time, my friend. What's the future hold for the company?
My aspiration, I mean, to be very honest with you, I don't really believe in this rigid 10-year plans. They sound cool, but they never really play out that way. Like, when I was, 1 year back, I was, just, making all these roadmaps, how I'm going to automate this, and I'm going to be a billionaire and I'm going to sell this company and be the next Elon Musk, right? So for this year, I would say, I want to scale my bootcamp, right? I want to run high signal hackathons, right? I want to, target like at least, 10 cities in India and, run hackathons in India. Hackathon is not as famous of a concept, as it is in the US or like some other countries, at least for school students. Yeah, sure, government has some initiatives, but they're not as good, right? So I want to run some high signal hackathons, and I also want to, create content and grow our studios up. So the teen-led ventures that are being produced by teens in our hackathons, in our boot camps, they don't just sit in a Google Drive or like in a GitHub repo. They actually have a platform, and they can get some traction, right? This is what I hold for now.
So, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? How can they learn more?
I mean, you can just DM me on LinkedIn. I respond to every, like DM on LinkedIn that I get, on Instagram, on email. Like seriously, anyone that wants to have a conversation, just DM me. I would love to, talk to you and get a perspective. I love talking to people and getting to know them.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to call into the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. This was it.